for all your life. UNA University, manifesting all your dreams. With paradise, your land is home. Writing contracts on your own. Protect your loved ones every day. Knowledge goes a long, long way. UNA University for me. UNA University for me. UNA Paradise all your life. Diversity all your dreams. Land is home on your own. Every day, long, long way. UNA University for me. Welcome to your paradise, the place you long for all your life. UNA University, you're manifesting all your dreams. I'm yours truly, Diva Lyri. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Let's go, y'all. We got a wonderful show today. Welcome. Yes, 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 yes. UNA. Yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. I'm yours truly, Diva Lyri, representing for United Nations from America, UNA Republic, UNA University, where we help you find your social freedom, financial freedom, and most importantly, your spiritual freedom. Let's go. Hello. Hello, everybody. We are broadcasting on TikTok, YouTube, X, Twitch, and Rumble. TikTok, YouTube, X, Twitch, and Rumble. Find us on all of those platforms. Make sure you like and share and subscribe and all that wonderful stuff. Love it. Pass it on. All right. Repost it. Let's go. I want to say welcome. Because we got a wonderful show here today. We are talking about the rise of the woman. All right. The rise of the woman. Now, I had some special guests to come on, but today, what I'm going to do, if anybody wants to come up, leave your email in the inbox or send us an email at una@unalovemarket.com, and let's get you in here so we can have this conversation. Now, the rise of the woman, going into some very heavy topics tonight, so make sure you're in here in your mature cap, your mature thinking cap. Okay, we're not knee-jerking in here. And the information that I present, again, I say to you, don't believe a word I say. I give this information so that you can go and look it up for yourself. I want to give a shout out to all the people in the house. Thomas, welcome. Denise, welcome. Ina, welcome. Shay, welcome. Sunset Rising and Truth, Queen of Truth, welcome. So glad to have you in the house. Thank you so much for being here. Once again, we're broadcasting on TikTok, YouTube, X, Twitch, and Rumble. Now, I need to tell you some things before we get into the topic of the night. You all know about the trust, okay? So make sure if you're interested in getting a trust, you can find us at unauniversity.com, unauniversity.com, and you can get your trust. Now, With that being said, we have had a lot of people to request another summit. Okay, we've had a lot of people to request the summit. The summit was wonderful. I enjoyed everybody who was there. A lot of them are students now. But if you just want to get into the summit so you can get an overview and have the opportunity to have a one-on-one, as close as much as a one-on-one as possible with me, join the summit. The next one we have will be December 7th, 8th, 9th. December 7th, 8th, and 9th. We want you to get ready to join the summit. You're going to be able to find it at UNA. As a matter of fact, createyourtrust.com. I just want to make sure I said it properly. All right, you'll be able to find it at createyourtrust.com. Okay, so make sure that you know that this is the UNA Summit Reboot. Okay, so you can go there and get that UNA, the Trust Summit Reboot, and you can find it at createyourtrust.com. That's going to be on December 7th, 8th, and 9th. Now, when you go there, you can go ahead and enroll, but we're going to update that as well. But 7th, 8th, 9th. This is hot off the presses. Now, I'm just letting you know this is hot off the presses. My team, they got to catch up because I just let them know just now right here. Hey, team. 7th, 8th, 9th. All right, we're going to be rolling or rebooting the summit. So go ahead and get there, createyourtrust.com. You can be a part of the Trust Summit. All right, also, let me remind you about the Beginner Law Book. This is where the laws are that we stand on here with UNA. This is powerful. This information here in this book, the Beginner Law Book, highly powerful. So we encourage you to get it. If you get the physical copy, you're going to get the hierarchy of law chart. You're going to get an additional copy of the universal law chart and also an additional copy of the vibratory frequency chart. These are already in the book. All right, they're already in the book, but we're giving you extra copies because we want you to put them on your walls, on your mirrors, on your refrigerators, so that these laws can become a part of you. If you get the physical copy, you're also going to get a copy of the civilization cycle and the societal totem pole. Okay, they're very important in understanding how things are going in society so you can see where we're going. Okay, so the UNA Beginner Law Book, you can get the ebook or you can get the physical copy with all the wonderful treats that come with it. Okay, and lastly, don't forget tapping into your supernatural powers. We're going into some of this tonight. Okay, where your supernatural powers are, some things that have been misrepresented to us as women and men. Okay, this is a book that I went through a lot of painstaking research to get an understanding of what's going on, and I put it in this book. Okay, these are things that some of my mentors have said, or some people that I've watched and learned from have said, but they didn't give us the whole story. It's in the book. Okay, so tapping into your supernatural powers, brothers, this is a good book for you. Women, you should get it. Okay, because you got some powers that you haven't been told about. Okay, speaking of powers that you haven't been told about, we're going to get into this topic today, Rise of the Woman. And I want to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. If you're interested in joining us tonight live, go ahead and you can put your email there and we'll send you a link so you can join, because it's private sessions we do. But I want you all to know, we're going to drop some information here, and I hope you find this information well. Okay, so Rise of the Woman, let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I need to do, and you all know, I got to make sure I preface this for my brothers, okay? Brothers, as I've said before, all of us have been lied to concerning who we are and what's going on in this third dimension. And so a lot of this information is difficult to take. I get it. But when we present it, it is not meant as a means to insult or degrade or downplay your importance here. Okay, I need to make sure we say that and make that clear. We just have to tell what's going on and what the issues are so that we can get things back in order, because I don't think anybody in their right mind who's looking at what's going on in society is orderly at this time. So let's talk about this topic where we're talking about the rise of the woman, and then dispel some things that are going on and recognize some things that we should not be doing in these coming times. Okay, so let me say this from the beginning. Nothing we do here in UNA is about hating anybody or anything or putting anyone down. You do not have to put somebody down to uplift yourself. I don't have to down my brother to uplift myself. I don't have to down the Albion to uplift myself as a melanated person. All I need to do is stand in who I am, and I shall be uplifted. Okay, so we want to make sure we're pointing this out. So when I have sisters that are coming to me and talking about how low down and dirty this one is and this man is, and then I know we got to step back and take a look at you. And we have to step back and take a look at self. So everything that we're dealing with here is about self and recognizing who you are to uplift yourself, because when you uplift yourself, everybody else in your dimension, including the men, including the Albion, including the animals, will be uplifted. Okay, everything is a part of you. Everything is one with you. So I want to first start off on this topic, feminism versus the matriarchy. Feminism versus the matriarchy. And there is a difference. All right. When you hear people talking about feminism, there is this fight for equality. When you hear people talking about feminism, there is this fight for equality. When we're talking about feminism versus the matriarchy and equality. All right, somebody says I'm breaking up, and I just saw this notice that said the connection was lost. Let me talk to my team. Make sure we're still running. One second. Thank you for letting. We're breaking up. So somebody said yes, but it's fine now. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. Getting back to what I say, when we're talking about equality, let's understand that there is a difference physically between the two beings. And we've talked about this, the 2X, the XX, and the XY, and what's going on with the woman and how there's a lot of her genes that she's not tapped into. Whereas the male, he's got full access to these 100 genes that hers are turned off. And a whole bunch of other superpowers are turned off because she's just not tapped in. But when she gets tapped in, she starts to get stronger. You see it? You see it? When she's been alone and they say, oh, she didn't have sex in a while, she real strong. That's not just happenstance. She's tapping into something else. Those genes that are turned off in her, that other X chromosome that's turned off in her, When she separates, those turn back on. But getting back to equality, let's understand what this is. There are certain things that a male is better at than a female, and there are certain things that a female is better at than a male. These are just truths that you can see when you go into society. This doesn't mean he can't do the same jobs. The same way it doesn't mean she can't do the same jobs that he does. But is it going to be more of a challenge? And I'm going to say to you, yes, it is. But does that mean that you're searching for equality? All you need to do is stand, and then you're going to rise. You're not trying to be equal with him. Watch this now. We'll go back to World War II, when the men were away, and so they couldn't serve in their position in the factory. So the women had to step in and do those jobs. Okay, so she's doing those jobs with success, but then he comes back, and of course the women now had to move out so that he could come back in. Okay, so there was this one woman in particular in this particular factory that said in her mind, well, if I can't do that job, how can I help him do his job? So she decides to make lunch or sandwiches for some of the men. Now, she's making her sandwiches and, for a few of the men, and then eventually all of the men started wanting a sandwich, to the point where she needed to open up a little snack booth. Now, mind you, they're paying her for this service. And as time went along, she started gaining so much money and so many customers from this service that she was making more money than she ever did working at the factory. Why am I pointing that out? Because I need you to understand that anytime you are in the business of serving others and helping others, the universe will serve you. I don't care what your skin color is. I don't care what your sex is. You can be bisexual. You could be transsexual. You could be whatever it is. When you're in the business of serving others, the universe will serve you. That is what we're talking about, not equality. But are you serving somebody? Are you helping somebody in some way? And when you have that mindset, you will never go without. And it's not going to be about, are we equal? You're going to be taken care of and well taken care of when you are in the business of serving and helping others, period. So what is all of this equality? When you uplift yourself, everybody around you will be uplifted, and you're not worrying about, are we equal? Because truth be told, when you focus on you, you're going to be above whatever else is going on out here, above it, not equality. So again, there is no fight. So all of this, when we're talking about feminism, there is a fight for equality. When we're talking about the matriarchy, there is no fight because there is no equality. We're about helping and serving others, the community as a whole, everybody. How can I help you uplift yourself? Because I'm going to uplift myself first. That's the difference. So we're not in here talking about we're going to fight because we equal with the... Listen, there are some jobs that women get paid far more at than men. So instead of, again, trying to be somebody who's in a job fighting for equality, woman, you're supposed to be running the whole thing. Ma'am, As opposed to, oh, I want a job. You're supposed to be creating the jobs. You are the creator. You're supposed to be creating them, not trying to be in them. And that's where, again, as a more feminine being, we forget and we don't recognize that the feminine side is the power, because that's where everything starts. That's the power. And this is not, again, a diss on the masculine or the male in any way, but everything starts from the feminine in the mind. Now, we know scientifically, the woman's brain is larger than that of the male's. Again, this is not a diss. Go and look it up. The woman's brain is larger than that of the male. So he has more physical strength. You got more mental strength. Why are you not using it? You're supposed to be creating, because everything comes from you. So when you're in it from that standpoint, then it's not about equality. You're the one who's supposed to be starting everything. But we can't do it, Diva, because they won't let us in. I just told you about a woman who came out of her brain about, well, I don't have this job, and said, how can I help somebody? When you start helping people, the universe will serve you in any way that you could possibly think about needing to be served. That's how it works. So let's go into this next thing that I need to speak about. Many times when I'm speaking on this subject, I will have a brother who will comment, and his whole question will be, well, dog, you make me feel like I'm not even necessary. And I don't want you to feel that way in any way. That's not my purpose of speaking this information. I'm specifically making sure the woman understands who she is and what her powers is, because the biggest issue in society today is that the fact that women don't know who they are. Somebody has told us that we're not worth anything unless you have a man, and that is a problem. That's a problem for the simple fact that if she doesn't understand who she is and what her value is, then she's going to keep giving that away. And until the woman uplifts herself, this whole society is going to stay unbalanced, because she is the reason why it's unbalanced. If the woman is unbalanced, your society is unbalanced. And I'm telling you, you can look around and see how unbalanced this society is. So I'm speaking to her because she needs to uplift herself. And brother, I'm letting you know this is not to degrade you or your purpose in any way. So then the thing becomes, are all men bad? Nobody said that. I can give you statistics, however, that's going to suggest to you that there are certain types that do certain issues, which is what I'm getting ready to do. But I'm not saying in any way that all men are bad, but I'm going to give you some statistics because we need to pay attention to what's going on, speaking to the women. When we're talking about violence against women and children, it doesn't matter what society you go into, what skin color, what country. When we're talking about violence against women and children, more than 85% of the perpetrators are male. When we're talking about robberies, more than 85% of the perpetrators are males. When we're talking about rape, you know what I'm talking about, more than 85% of the perpetrators are male. When we're talking about violent crimes, more than 85% of the perpetrators are males. When we're talking about urdimays, more than 85% of the perpetrators are male. And you would say, well, we got a male problem. And I would say we have a female problem. Why you say that, Diva? Well, because 100% of those males came from a female, and this is where a lot of people get upset with me. I get it, but just pay attention before you knee jerk. Because the question becomes, who created these monsters? Even though it's not all men who are doing this, the ones who do these things, the vast majority of them are males. So then I got to ask the question, who created these monsters? Who created them? Women. 100% of them came from women. So then the question becomes, how do we get to her to keep her from creating a monster? Let's understand something. This is not to say that women don't have their own fair share of dirt that they do. This is not saying that women don't. But this is saying that when you create a being of such type, then you got to recognize what kind of being this is. This is a volatile being. The Y chromosome is a volatile chromosome. And then if the woman is not teaching that being how to be in society, well, you're going to get a monster. So who created the monster? It becomes my question. How do we get her to be on her point where she doesn't create him that goes out here and does the Erda maze and the rapings and the robberies and the violent crimes and the crimes against women and children? How do we keep that from happening? You get to her, the whole society uplifts. This is what I'm saying. And here's the thing. When I start speaking about women being accountable, other folks want to attack. I've had this before. Somebody attacking me because I say women need to be accountable. Only thing I'm dealing with, woman, is that everything comes from you. Nothing gets in this society unless it comes through your Stargate. And the problem is, a lot of you all are sleeping with the enemy. You're sleeping with demons. And when I talk about this, nobody wants to hear it. That's okay. That's okay. Because what I do is I put this on record so that 5-10 years from now, when somebody starts spewing the same thing, it's okay. I said it 10 years ago. I get it. Nobody wants to hear it right now, but it needs to be said. When the woman comes into order, everything must come into order. So when I look at the rapings and the Erda maze and the robberies and the child molestations and all these other things, who created those monsters? And how do we keep her from creating that monster? So let's understand now, going into molecular structure. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comment section so that I can answer them before I get out of here. If you have any disagreements, put them in the comment section. If you want to come up, send an email, UNA Love Market, and let's see if we can get you in here so you can speak on it. I want to hear you talk. All right. Shout out. Once again, we're broadcasting live TikTok, X, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble. So you can join us on any of those platforms. And I'm going to get to your comments and questions in a second. I just want to get into this topic here, and let's understand where the male comes from. Okay, let's understand where he comes from. When we're looking at the Y chromosome, let's understand that the Y originally was an X. Once again, when we're looking at the Y chromosome, let's understand that the Y originally was an X. It is a derivative of the X chromosome. So when somebody is telling you that the man chooses and this is not true. There is no such thing as a Y sperm. We've talked about this before. That sperm coming from the male better have all X's, or it is not going to be compatible with the X's within her, and it is going to be terminated immediately by the mitochondria or the mighty mitochondria. She's going to terminate that, because if it's not equal with the DNA that's already within her. See, you're talking about equality. He better be sending in all females, or it's not going to it's not going to come to fruition, because it will be terminated by the mitochondria. He better be shooting all X's, or the mitochondria is going to terminate it immediately. Okay, so we're recognizing that everything starts from the feminine. It's a girl from the beginning. And we have shown this in several of our other sessions, and I'll go into it again. But today I need to get into the rise of the female. That's what we're talking about. So everything comes from the feminine. He originally was a girl or a female. And what causes that Y to degrade? And I need this to be made clear. I'm telling you what science says, okay? It is a degradation of the X chromosome, whereby 1,300 genes are removed from this X chromosome that originally had 1,400 genes. So then 1,300 genes are removed from this X chromosome to create a Y. And that Y chromosome is going to be the X chromosome coming from the father. That's the only one that gets degraded. Okay? It's called a sex chromosome. So what ends up happening is this X chromosome is degraded to a Y chromosome. But the question becomes, why does it get degraded? Everything has to do with the condition of the mother. So pay attention. If the woman is in a state of chaos or unbalanced spiritually, emotionally, physically, she's going to be more likely to degrade that child from an X to a Y, from a girl to a boy. And I go into many ways that you can tell that everything is a girl, especially why do you have to wait for 3 months before you know if it's a girl or a boy? Because it's a girl. It's a girl. Originally, it is a girl. But what happens is, depending on her state, she's going to either the being or the embryo is going to stay a girl, or she's going to degrade it to a Y because of her state. And what is, again, if she's unbalanced, then she's going to be more likely. Now, let me say this. A woman can give birth to a girl if she's having some issues. But if she gives birth to a boy, that's a clear sign that she was under duress at the time of the pregnancy. Not at the time of the birth, but at the time of the pregnancy. Okay? I want to make that clear. At the time of the pregnancy, the beginning of the pregnancy, if she's going through a violent situation in the home, or she's just not eating right, or she's unhealthy, she's going to be more likely, again, to give birth to a boy. All boys, all males come from chaos. Again, this is not a diss. I'm giving you the facts. All males comes from a woman who's in chaos and turmoil. Okay? So now that we're understanding, first of all, where a male comes from, now you can start understanding where these other beings that commit these atrocities in society come from. It's all starting from the woman. So I don't want to keep trying to deal with him, because really I want to get to the root of it. The root of it is the woman. And here's the other issue while we're talking about the rise of the woman. You've got a lot of women out here who are spreading their legs and opening their Stargate, and she's been in traumatic situations as a child, even as an adult, But definitely as a child, where she hasn't dealt with these things that's happened to her, or we talk about men and what they have done. She hasn't dealt with that. And because she's not accountable, she's doing things and spreading her legs, and she doesn't even know who she is. She can't rise until she knows who she is. So we're going to get into that. I'm going to take a break, give a shout out to people who have joined. Thank you for joining. Once again, we're broadcasting live TikTok, X, Twitch, and Rumble. YouTube people, hello. TikTok people, hello. My team, let me know if we get one of the a comment from the other networks. Let us know. Okay, let me take some questions here. Let me answer some of these comments in the comments section and take a break. By the way, real quick, we have started, put this on the screen for me, Danielle. Let me get into this real quick, and I'm going to answer some questions. Put them in the comments section. Put this on the screen for me, Danielle. All right, so we have started our summer season, and you can find us at university.com. All right, so we're in summer season 2026. If you're interested in joining us, make sure you find us at unauniversity.com. All right, all of our students go through back to basics so that we can get you under trust and protected. All right, we have law and history, which is one of our sessions. We go through the history of what has happened, not only in this country, some other countries, but the main issue we're dealing with is how things that are happening in this land affect us right here today. Okay, so we go through that in law and history. Then we go through overstanding legal, which is our Wednesday course. Our sessions are all via Zoom from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. In overstanding legal, this is where we're showing you how to stand. When you come up against the agents, whether it be the police, the judge, the county clerk, the post office, okay, you got to understand what's going on, what your rights are, and how to stand. This is where you're learning how to do that in overstanding legal. We also have our advanced course for our advanced members, Banking 4, where they're learning how, after they've created their trust, how to fund it, what accounts they need to open up to make sure it's funded properly, and then to start leveraging all of their assets they put in there and using them in the public and the private. So Banking 4 is for our advanced students, and this is if you're interested in join the university, university.com. We hope to see you there. Thank you. Thank you so much, Danielle. All right, let me get to some of these comments in the comments section. D So Long says he's waiting to see the completion of the first step before he take further action, step by step, right? What do you mean you're waiting to see the completion of the first step? The first step is to join a university or get a trust. Go to unauniversity.com. That's your first step. All right. Super says, we learn a lot of our ways from vain, egotistical women. Yes. Okay. Now we're talking about accountability, and women are going to be upset. And I get it, because, you know, brothers have a lot to say. But let's be honest about some of the things and where they get their ways. Everything comes from us. We can't say, oh, we're the guys. And then when it comes time to be accountable, we're like, no, well, that ain't my fault. It was somebody else. Well, wait a minute now. If you're going to claim that you are this, then you got to stand in it. You got to be accountable. And so, yeah, a lot of the ways that men are getting learning, they're coming from women. And I'm going to say this too, women, you all, I've seen it too many times where women or mothers will help their sons in ways that they shouldn't. It's like when he should be cut off, you still trying to hold on to him. You still paying for this, you paying for that, and you're enabling him to be that way because you haven't stood up and said, hey son. And then I gotta say this to women. Okay? All of this talk about how your baby daddy ain't nothing and all this. There is no baby daddy unless you say yes. He doesn't exist unless you say yes. I get it. He promised me that this is why we got to get into who he is. Because if you're not respecting the nature of the Y chromosome, that's why I break it down. If you're not respecting the nature of the Y chromosome, then the problem is you. He has been telling us if I'm breaking up, let me know. But people want to call Lilith a demon. But the truth, the only one doing demonic things is that so-called being, the one that's called the so-called God. That's the only one doing demonic things. Lilith said, you know what? Adam, I don't like you. And so I'm leaving. I don't like the way you're treating me. I don't appreciate you always trying to be on top and to dominate me and I'm out. So this Lilith character decides to sprout wings and fly away. And here comes this God character trying to force her back into a situation where she is already determined she doesn't want to be. Okay. So Lilith is telling God, I don't want to be here. And God sends his messengers and says, you tell her to come back here or I'm going to kill all her children. Or I'm going to kill 100 of her children every day. So we need to be thinking about some things here. And all of this deals with the rise. Just pay attention. Pay attention to what I'm saying. When we're talking about so-called mythology, let's understand that a myth doesn't make it a lie. That's the first thing. But even if it's a lie, let's understand that all lies come from the truth. So I'm going to say this again for the people in the back of the room. When we're talking about mythology, well, they're saying, oh, it's a myth and we don't know. A mythology or mythological doesn't mean that it's a lie. All right, it just means that they're trying to say, well, we're not sure, we don't have any proof of it, we can't prove it. But even if it is a lie, all lies come from the truth. So then you have to start asking questions now. Here's this Lilith character that had the power and ability to sprout wings and fly away. Why didn't the male character fly after her? Why didn't he get the same powers in this mythological lying story to go after her and say, look here, woman, come back? Also, once this God character sent his minions after her to say, you need to come back, she had the power to say, no. She said, no. Because she understood she's the one who has the power. There ain't no equality here. Even she standing up to God said, God, no. No, I said, this is not what I'm doing. That's not what I'm doing. I don't care to be there. No. Also, you got to think about this God character saying, I'm going to kill 100 of your children. First of all, what do you mean children? When she's over here, she's not having sex with him. It's just her. And how many is she having in a day if you killing 100 of them a day? They want to call her a demon because she decides she doesn't want to be there. There's nothing else that she did other than say, no, I care to be over here by myself. And now all of a sudden, because she says no, she's a demon. That's patriarchy for you. And we're going to get into patriarchy and where that came from. That's patriarchy. And this is how it is today. If a woman tells a man no, she's the B word. B-I-T-C-H. Because she said no. But what does B-I-T-C-H means? It means being in total control of herself. Being in total control of herself. Okay? She the B-I-T-C-H. Let's get back to the demon word. Because when you're forcing someone or attempting to force someone into doing something that they don't care to do, that goes against universal laws, and that is demonic. Then you turn around and say that you're going to kill 100 of her children every day. That is demonic. So for me, when I look at this mythological or lie, whether it is or not, what I'm seeing is that somebody is switching the story to serve a purpose. Why is she demonic when the only thing she did was say, no, I want to be over here? Okay. So let's get back into the power that the woman possesses that she's not recognizing. If you're talking about your baby daddy, the question you should be asking is, how did he come to be in the first place? You didn't take the time to get to know who this being was before you laid down with it. So women, you have a choice today. You don't have an arranged marriage. You don't have a situation where somebody is forcing you into something, but society is lying to you and telling you that you're not worth anything unless you have a man. And we need to go into how this whole idea came to be. And this is not me saying, oh, I don't need no man. This is me saying, you need to be whole before you get with somebody else. Before you allow somebody to tap into you, you should have tapped into source. You should know who you are before you spread your legs and let somebody plant seed into you. You don't even know who this being is planting seed. This could be the true demon planting seed in you. This is why you originally were to wait 6 months before you slept with them, because it's, you know how if a dog is rabid, they're going to quarantine it for 6 months to see how it acts. And if it's rabid, then we're going to know we want to stay far away from that, or they're going to put it to sleep. And some of you all are not taking time to see if the being that you're dealing with is rabid or not. Some of these beings you're sleeping with, they straight out of their mind, and then you want to get upset. Well, my baby daddy ain't no good here. Well, if you had taken time to get to know who he was, you would have learned that. You could have seen some things and you would have known to move away from him before you allowed him to plant seed. That is big. That's a big issue. And part of that has to do with her not have taken time to deal with her own spiritual baggage or issues from a child that she never handled. So now when you get with a male and you got these same issues, what are you going to give birth to? All right. This is a serious issue. Um, Again, if you have any comments, put them in the comment section. Tino says, or it not I'm sorry. I said Tino. I just switched those letters. Okay, see what I did there? Okay. It not I says, so trauma is necessary for creating a man. What is necessary for birthing a male animal? It's the same thing. Listen, if the same way we go through trauma in this as humans, animals do too. Animals go through trauma too. It's not just us. Okay, so if the female is going through her trauma, then she's going to be more likely, not always, but she's going to be more likely to create a male. I'm going to give you another one when I really start looking into this subject. Marijuana, for example, or Mary J. I can't say that because they'll cut me off. Mary J, for example. Those of y'all who've ever grown Mary J, and if you ask people who've grown, even look it up, what you'll find is when seeds are planted, if the soil is off or unbalanced, you're going to get more male Mary J's. Now, let me back up because some people are unaware that there's a such thing as a male and a female Mary J plant. I was unaware too. I was like, what? I was like, it's a plant. What are you talking about? So this is what happened. I used to sell brownies when I was in South America, right? And all of the people, every time I sell brownies, it's like, these crazy brownies. I was like, what's a crazy brownie? And then somebody told me it had marijuana in it. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to buy marijuana because in the place where I was, they kept saying that the marijuana was bad in that area. And so that people would get sick from it. So I was like, if I'm going to do that, I need to grow my own because I've heard too many stories and I don't smoke the stuff. So, and I don't necessarily deal with it in that way. But what ended up happening was I had a friend. I told him that I was like, yeah, I need to grow some marijuana. He says, Mary J, excuse me. He says, okay. So it comes back with these seeds. He had 10 seeds. He said, okay, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna plant these in some soil. And he said, 5 of them are gonna be male, and then 5 of them gonna be female. He's like, that's normally how it's somewhere around there. And I was like, wait a minute, what you mean male, female? He's like, yeah, it's a male and a female. And I didn't know this. So anyway, he goes on to say, okay, now, this is what you got to do. When you see the males, you got to kill them. You got to pluck them out. Otherwise, they're going to control community. All right? They're going to mess up the whole plant. So if you see some males, and then he said, you're going to know the males because they have those little balls. All right? And then he says, you don't smoke the males. I'm like, I ain't smoking nothing anyway. But what you talking about? He's like, yeah, okay. You can't smoke the males because they're going to give you a headache. And then he says, and the THC is in the female. I'm like, the what? The THC, the stuff to make you high, that's in the female, he said. I'm like, whoa. Okay. So anyway, he says, if you don't take the males out, he said, you'll know them because the little balls. And if you don't take them out, he says, they're going to turn the whole community into hermaphrodites. And that's going to destroy the entire population. I want y'all to listen to what I just said. If you don't destroy the males, they're going to contaminate the entire population and turn everything into hermaphrodites. And it got me to thinking, I had to take a look at the society and the way things are going and how there's more and more people wanting to be trans and gay and bi and sex changes and all this other stuff. And I'm trying to understand where this is coming from. And this was the beginning of where my research came from. In recognizing that that population looks very much similar to what's going on in this population. So then the question becomes, where do the males come from? And one of the things that I found is when we're talking about that Mary J plant is determined by the soil that it's planted in. The more damaged or the more bacteria or issues in the soil, the more likely these plants are to be male. So when you plant your Mary J in good soil and it's not too wet, it's not too dry, it's just right, no contaminants of bacteria or fungi, then you're going to be more likely to get female Mary J's with THC in it. Okay? Meanwhile, if you got a whole bunch of male Mary J plants, then the problem is your soil. It starts with the soil. So getting back to the woman, again, if she's unbalanced, if she's getting beat up in her relationship, her job is not doing well, she's afraid, she's scared, then she's going to be more likely to give birth to a male. And I know if I see a woman and she's got 3 male children by the same male, I know there's been some issues going on in that relationship. I don't care what she say coming out of her face. She goes, oh no, we is good, we great. Yeah, that's not what your body says. Your body's saying something totally different. So what I'm saying to you is, and again, this is not a diss on anyone, I'm telling you what the facts are. And so women, now that you understand, you got to recognize now, you are controlling what's coming into this dimension. And you control it with your mind. Everything starts here. Everything. Everything. And so the problem is that the woman hasn't been respecting and understanding, first of all, who she is, what her role is in this game, and how she is creating the beings that are coming up in here. So when we start talking about the male, understand he comes from you. Even when we're talking about some guy that you just met, he is a reflection of you. And so if he's in your dimension and he is quote unquote, and I don't like to use this N word, narcissistic, then check yourself, because he is only your reflection. Nah, Diva, this is how it always happens. Somebody will tell me about how their boyfriend did this, or baby daddy did that, or husband did this, and then they want to act like a victim. When the truth is, you can't tell me about what he did to you without telling me what you did to somebody else. You cannot tell me what he did to you without telling me what you did to somebody else. These are the facts. These are universal laws, whether people like it or not. And it's always, oh, not me. I would never do. And then it's like, hold on now. That's always the case. And then when we get to talking, and then when we get to understanding and recognizing what happened in the past, oh, he was gaslighting me and he did this and he said this. Okay, tell me about the relationship before that. Tell me about how you were with the person in the previous relationship. And it always comes back to, yeah, they did some dirt. And you've got to recognize that this person is only showing up in your dimension because of what you put out. And once people are ready to be accountable, then we can go to a whole nother level. Getting back to the woman with the baby daddy. There is no baby unless you say yes. There is no baby daddy unless you say yes. And the issue is that women are not recognizing who they are so that they can uplift themselves. Let's understand, as I've said before, women, your powers are coming back online. That other X chromosome, is coming back online. You're tapping into it. And so as it comes back online, you need to be cognizant of what your position and your role is. What does that mean? That means you can't just go and be talking nasty to him either. That's another thing. We already did that. So I'm going to go into the history of how everything was originally owned by the woman. We already did that, where we were disrespectful to him and hateful, and we forgot the history. This is why we go into law and history, because you got to understand what happened in the past. How we got into this position is not happenstance. We are not victims. The woman used to own everything. All right. So we're gonna go into that. But one of the things that we want to recognize as we regain our powers is that we cannot be abusive with them as we were in the past. And you've got to recognize who he is as a being. And we're not saying, and I have not said at any point that all men are bad. Never said that. Nor all women are good. I never said that. What I'm saying to you is, as women, you have to be cognizant of who he is and not have expectations of him that are outside of his nature. So I need to go back into the Y chromosome. And once again, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments section so that I can get to them before I get out of here. Okay. Who he is with the Y chromosome. Now, we've talked about this, that again, the male is an inside out female. We've gone into that. I've shown the anatomy. It's probably time for me to do that session again. Well, who is the male, and to really break it down. But from a molecular perspective, who is he? That Y chromosome has a pull, meaning that its whole, it doesn't matter if you're talking about humans or turtles or dogs or cats or flying on the land or in the sea. When we're talking about a Y chromosome, its purpose is to spread seed, period and point blank. Spread seed. And you have to respect that as a woman, that the Y chromosome is telling him to do what he needs to do to be able to spread seed. And that's just it. That is what it does. Don't act like, well, he is some good man. What the hell is a good man? What does that mean? What are you talking about? The Y chromosome has a purpose, and it is to spread seed. All this good man, it doesn't make him bad because his nature is saying to spread seed. You're asking him to go against his nature, when his nature has said, and I see that girl over there. And let me tell you something. Men have already told you. Their soldier will rise when it wants to. He might not even be thinking about it. He might just be sitting there chilling. And next thing you know, his soldier decide to rise because the wind blew another way. So any man out there, they know what I'm talking about. My mature men, they know. They're not gonna, as a matter of fact, they don't even have to be mature. They've already told you that they don't have full control over that. They don't have full control. And so as a woman, you have already been told and warned. So if you're not recognizing that and being cognizant of that, the problem is you, not him. He already told you. He don't have control over that. So the nature of that entity is to spread seed. So with that being said, for women, it is your responsibility. You have a Stargate. You have been put in control and in charge of what shows up in this dimension. You have hold of the Stargate. And if you are not aware of who you're allowing to plant seed in the Stargate, then you're being irresponsible. You're being irresponsible to this whole planet. So what I'm saying to you is, as a woman, you've got to respect what his job is, and that is to plant seed at all costs. He gonna tell you what he need to tell you in order to plant seed. He gonna say, "Oh, baby, no, I'll be with you for the rest of my life forever and ever and ever and ever and ever." And he could be lying straight through his teeth, but he didn't come to you because he thinks you are ambitious and is proud of you, and he didn't come to you because he want to have a family, and he didn't come to you for that. He saw you across the street, and he crossed that street to shake your hand. But before he got across that street to shake your hand, he already sexed you 3 times in his mind. He already did that. He's not coming there because oh, you seem like a really nice person. I'd like to have family. No, his first thought is spreading seed. And you have to respect that. All this stuff about good man and he gonna take care of it, that's not his first natural thought. And so with that being said, we're seeing a lot of separation. We're seeing that women are not trying to necessarily get with men, and then you see men and say, "I'm sick of it. I don't even want to try anymore." I get it. That's part of the rise. That's part of coming back into balance with nature. It's coming back into balance. So what's happening is there's also a drop in the number of babies that are being had as well. That's part of it, because there needs to be a balance. Now, women, there's this thought that, oh, we're gonna become this extinct. No, that's not how that goes. There has to be a balance. Some things are going to become extinct, yes. But the human, as long as there's a woman, there will be. As long as there's a woman, and she's going to tap back in and learn how to procreate on her own the way she was doing originally. She's going to tap back in and learn how to procreate on her own the way she was doing originally. Does this mean the male goes away? The male vessel might, but the spiritual entity within the vessel always was and always will be. You got to get another vessel. I get it. Because see, y'all don't want to hear me when I tell you that all things that are unnatural, they have an extinction period. The human vessel wasn't always on this planet. But the spirit was. I'm going to say it again because somebody missed it. The human vessel wasn't always on this planet, but the spirit was. And those of us who recognize that we are the spirit and not this human vessel, we get it. We understand that there has to be growth, there is transition, and at some point things become extinct, but the spirit never dies. So don't get proud of these human vessels when you're supposed to be creating bigger and better vessels, light vessels. What's all this walking when I need to be able to teleport? What's all this talking when I'm supposed to be able to speak without moving my lips? That's that power in that other X chromosome that's dormant and that was taken away from him. That's where the powers reside. It's tapped in. When you tap in, then you can tap into those powers. All right. So we're in a position where women and men are separating. That's natural. And let me say this, women, the only way this mess gets cleaned up is when you learn who you are first before you allow anybody to tap into you. And I need to make this clear. You cannot tap into you in a relationship. If somebody is continuously spraying seed in you, you cannot tap into source because you don't have full control over the other entities inside of you that are speaking. So I need to go into this. I talked about the sperm and what it is. It is a spiritual entity, and it has the ability and does communicate inside of you. People are not told, and women are not told about what that whole thing in the Bible, till death do us part, means. When you have sex, according to the Bible, you're married. That's the marriage. We're talking about consummate the marriage. You have sex, you marry. Till death do you part. And why is that? Let's understand, when sperm goes into her, his whole essence is going into you. That's why they're telling him, when he ejaculates, to ejaculate within, because you're giving off your life essence. His past, present, and future is going into her. His mother is going into her. Those sperm are powered by mitochondria DNA coming from his mother. The mitochondria DNA has a history. It carries his history. It carries his lineage. That's going into her. Who he is, his makeup, what he's been doing. If he's been drinking, if he's demonic, if he's whatever it is, it's going into her. And those sperm don't just die. Even though her body continues to fight every sperm coming up within her. That's why she has yeast infections and all kind of whatever it is that she has after he's ejaculated in her. She has these situations to come up because her body is fighting those sperm. But let's understand how mitochondria are. You don't just kill those. You don't just digest those. Only thing her body can do is to neutralize them. Meaning, here's his mitochondria up in here in her. All she can do is engulf and neutralize. All right. However, those mitochondria, they become part of her cells. So now they have become one. They have combined together. And this is why you'll see situations where a woman will have had sex with this one over here. Okay, and they break up and he goes on his way, she goes on her way. And then she gets with another guy and they have a child. But the child looked like the first one over here, even though they haven't been together. Okay, he's still with her. Till death do them part. Till death do they part. They're together. They're married. And we haven't been told about this. But you got to recognize what's going on a molecular level when you're getting with a male. So now you've got these sperm in you and they are communicating. All right. And if you haven't tapped in the source, then how are you going to tap into anything? Because these sperm are talking within you. Let's understand. I've talked about this. You are made up of 90% bacteria, 10% human. The rest of you is spiritual entities in you moving around and making decisions inside of your vessel. So what's happening is you've got all of these bacteria, and one of them being one of the most important, which is the mitochondria. She is a bacteria. She is within your cells, but then you got entities outside of your cells that are talking. And you can't hear her voice, and she's constantly speaking to you. That's that soft voice, that conscious voice. That's that one. But you can't hear it when you got all of these other voices talking to you, meaning like what you're eating, what you're drinking, who you're hanging around. All of these are spiritual entities, and they speak. You hear people talking about your gut bacteria. That's your gut. It's a community of bacterial beings that are speaking, and they speak by secreting pheromones into your bloodstream, and it sounds to you like voices. Girl, I'm hungry. Girl, we need to get some pizza. Girl, I want some of him. Those are all voices. They're very real. So when you hear somebody talking about schizophrenic and she bipolar, those are real voices. And if you have all of these different voices inside of you speaking, you can't hear the one you need to listen to, which is the mitochondria. So now, what I'm saying to you, if you're really trying to tap into self and tap into source, yeah, you're going to have to separate. Because it's unfair for you to be in a relationship and talking about, baby, baby, I need to tap in. He gonna want to tap something. And again, respect that. That's what the nature of the why is, to tap. It doesn't matter where the being is. If it's a Y chromosome, it has a nature, and that is to tap it. Again, it could be dolphins. It could be seals. It could be fish, turtles. It doesn't matter. If it's a Y chromosome, the nature of it is to tap. So when you're wanting to tap into source in yourself, yeah, you got to separate. Because it's not going to be fair for you to be talking about, well, baby, we're going to have to lay low. Because he's not ready to hear that. I don't care how tapped in he is, he going to want to tap into you. Baby, you don't need to do all that. You good. And let me say this. A brother's going to be upset with me about saying or telling her to abstain. And that's somebody who you want to find yourself away from. Because if he's upset about you finding source, then that's not going to be somebody you need to be with. I'm just letting you know. And I get it. Because again, I've had many male friends, and the ones who I really, my guy friends who I really love, they just my friends. That's it. But they don't have the same feeling for me, because look, I get it. We're friends. I've said we're friends, but at the same time, I understand what the nature is, and it is to tap. So if you're not allowing that as a female or feminine being, well, he's not going to be too good with that. He's going to feel like you're holding out, and you are. But again, that's what you're supposed to do, because you're supposed to find yourself before you allow anyone else to spray seed in you. And any man who has any issue with that one, and that's not somebody who you need to be with, because you should not be spreading your legs and opening and offering your stargate to somebody that you don't know. This is how demons get into this dimension, through you, ma'am. This is how demonic beings who come in here and rape and molest and rob and urtimate, this is how they get here, through you. So as we're talking about the rise, my whole deal is to make sure that we're recognizing the nature of the beings that we're doing business with. And you're asking beings to go against their nature so that you can find yourself. Well, don't ask them to go against their nature. Just separate. Just find yourself first. And that way, if you get to get to being with a Y chromosome, then at least they're going to have some balance. At least you're going to know who you are and know how to bring balance to this one, because you can't bring balance to anything over here when you have no balance. Okay, everything is starting with you. So that's where I am with that. And this is not about putting the brother down. You don't have to do that to uplift yourself. Just uplift you. Find you, and he's going to automatically elevate, because you're not going to get with somebody over here who's going to disrespect you and mistreat you. You're going to have love over here because you have love within you. All right, I'm going to take some questions and comments. I hope you found this information well. I know it's hard to hear. I know nobody's listening. Like I said, this will be up 5-10 years from now. So you can scroll back to it and say, Diva was saying that. Yeah, I've been saying it. I've been saying it 10 years ago. The woman needs to know who she is. That's the only way that we get to balance in this society. All of this stuff about fighting for equality. There is no fight because there is no equality. Everything starts with you, man. And when we're talking about the number of beings on this planet and the type of beings on this planet, that is all controlled by the woman right here in her mind. When we're talking about the number of beings on this planet and the nature of the beings on this planet, that's all controlled by the woman right here in her mind. If I have any questions or comments or disagreements, put them in the comments section. I want to hear them before I get out of here. All right. I want to remind you, find us at unauniversity.com, unauniversity.com, so that you can get your trust if you're looking for it. Also, we have the Trust Summit coming up. This is the Trust Summit reboot, and it's going to be on December 7th, 8th, 9th. December 7th, 8th, and 9th. You can find that at createyourtrust.com, createyourtrust.com. Let me see these comments. Let's see. Oh, I got a lot of comments. Okay. Our number one affection is low self-esteem. Even the so-called gods have it. Yes, thank you, Super. The so-called gods had low self-esteem. They had all kind of issues, the same issues that we have here in society. The so-called, it comes from them. So let me say this. When I look at the so-called gods of the Bible, I know we're talking about the so-called Anunnaki. All right. When I see, because I know that there's more than one God of the so-called Bible. I know there's more than one God. And all you people who's, it's only one God. Yeah, no. You need to study outside of that book so that you can know the truth about where it came from. But when you're talking about the Anunnaki, you're talking about some ill-mannered beings, the ones who supposedly created the humans. All these Erdemes and rapes and robberies and crime, all of those things, they did that to an even higher level than what you see in society today. So yeah, the gods had low self-esteem. Learning to love ourselves is the greatest love of all. I agree. Thank you, Super. Half of him, I don't know what you're talking about. 04 J Shah. The male won't bud. Are you talking about the male won't bud? I don't know what you're talking about. I guess he's talking about the Mary J plant. Society mimics the plants. Yes. I take accountability for my actions in any relationship. All right, Sunsag, good. That's where it should be. And then I hope we get to the point where, again, as women, we recognize where our balance is, because we've been told, you need to be in a relationship and all this. But when women who find themselves outside of a relationship, she starts talking about she has peace. Peace. That's what you should be looking for, peace. When you're not searching for something to try to complete you, women, the completion is within you, not outside of you. And all of these women who are saying, you know what, I don't even have to deal with any of that stuff. Listen, I'm going to tell you, I don't deal with relationships at all personally. But when I look out in society, the people who I think do it the best are the so-called cougars, right? Who what they do, and I knew one or two. And what they would do, they had their own stuff. Like, they got my own car, I got my own house, I don't need anything, I make plenty of money. And she'll go out and get this young guy and let the young guy do what the young guy does. And then she say, all right, baby, thank you, and send him on his way. And she stays balanced. She's cool. I need you for this. And then she does what she does, and then she sends him on his way. I'm not saying that that's the greatest thing to do. I think women, you should be more balanced. But if you have to be with one, I think they do it the best, personally. Because they don't stress about whether he calls or not, or, you know, what he does. Because she's the one with the upper hand. She's the one saying and calling the shots. I'll see you Thursday and maybe Tuesday. But other than that, you don't get to stay here. And I'm not going to have you staying in my house and bringing in drama. I think she does it the best, personally. But I don't deal with any of that. Miss Copper, welcome. What about the men who can't spread seed? I am Miss Love. What do you mean, what about the men who can't spread seed? I mean, even if they're not spreading seed, if you spreading your legs to them, then you're not tapping in the source. And if you're in a relationship where there's constant drama, okay, all this, well, you know, I need to be subdued. Go by yourself. What's all of this? I gotta lower myself. If it's drama, just go find your peace by yourself. Somebody has lied to you and told you that you have to be in a relationship in order for you to be something. I need to give some more statistics. Okay. Here's a statistic. She's gonna make more money than the married male. To her household, all three of these people, then when she tends to be in a better shape than her single male counterpart and her married woman counterpart. Now that married man, he in good shape because he got somebody taking. I'm not dissing, but if he's got a woman who's really good and nurturing, he's gonna be in good shape. But that single woman, she's in good shape because she's taking care of herself. Then when you look at mental state, that single woman is going to be more stable than the married woman, or especially the single man. As a matter of fact, a single male is more prone to suicide, to be suicidal, than anybody else in all the groups. A single male. So a single male is in bad shape, according to statistics, than a single woman. And it's not a diss. This is just what the stats say. And all I'm saying to women is recognize the lies that we have been told. Find your peace, because when you find your peace, you're better off financially, better off physically, better off mentally when you have peace. Now, if you can find that with a guy, good. But don't make it be your end all be all, because that causes other problems. What time is it? I'm not gonna go into it today. But when you're stressing about, oh, well, he need to be in the house, there's another issue that we haven't talked about that is so huge. And I'm gonna go back to that whole statistic about women and children being abused, and it's mostly coming from the male. Okay. Women, you are bringing predators into your home when you have children. You're bringing predators into your home when you have children, and you're not knowing who this guy is. I'm saying to you that we as women, we have to recognize the nature of the beings that we're doing business with. And here's another statistic when we're talking about child molestation. More than 85% of the perpetrators of this child molestation are people who the child knew. More than 85% of it is the people who the child knew. A baby daddy, a boyfriend, a cousin, an uncle, a brother, a granddaddy. You have to know the nature of the being, because you're allowing, and some of y'all are putting your hands and leaving your children of predators. Then you understand why there's so much trauma in women, and now they grow up and they think that they're supposed to be in a relationship when she hasn't even dealt with her own issues as a child. And then we wonder why she creates a monster. Okay. Those are bad men. Monogamy and loyalty have been standardized for nearly 2,000 years. That's right, because 2,000 years is when men took over. I'm going to go into that. Men took over right there at that change where we went from BC to AD. That's when men really took over and moved women out of position. Also, nature does not mean right, and there are many natural attributes of human nature we expel from society. All right. And white boy, or white boy Poppy, I want you to expound on that last part of it. When you say there are many natural attributes of human nature we expel from society, please state what those are, and thank you for joining us. 4J Shaw says, wow, Adelina. So if self-control is fruit of spirit according to the Bible, and a man's nature lacks sense of self-control, then what does that really mean? Thank you, Adelina. That is a great point. Self-control is fruit of the spirit. One of the things that I speak about here all the time is discipline. Discipline and self-control. Do you have control of who you are? So if Adelina says the sense of self-control, if men don't have a sense of self-control, then what does that mean? That Y chromosome is a very volatile chromosome. It's very volatile, meaning that it's off balance. The Y chromosome is an off balance chromosome, and it speaks to the flesh. It speaks to flesh. So if he doesn't have connectivity with source, his whole thing is going to be to dominate her. Pay attention. Thank you for this question, Adelina. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Adelina. Okay. So all of us, again, this XY chromosome and 2X in women and the XY in men, all of us are dealing with the flesh. However, the chromosomes, they have their own pull and intent. They have their own contract, and that is to procreate. Now, with a male, he's going to have more of a difficult time tapping into source because you got this Y chromosome pulling on him to have sex. That's just what it is. And this is not a diss, but men know that they think about sex quite a lot throughout the day. Women, in most cases, not all, but there's some women who they own their own planet. But most women, we're not thinking about it all the time like that. That is not on our mind. And so sometimes, I get it. I kind of feel for the male because he's distracted. This Y chromosome has a pull and it's telling him to spray seed and it stays on his mind. So now you got a situation with this being. He's having a hard time tapping in because he's hungry for sex. Listen, I get it. One of my disciplines is food. Okay, that's one of my battles. All of us have our battles with the flesh. All of us have our battles with the flesh. And for me, my biggest one is with food. Not that I overeat, but that I need to not eat so often. So, I've talked about my fasting habits and how I fast 3 days out of the week. I don't want to eat. But sometimes I want to eat. I might snack on some sunflower seeds, but still, that's the thing that I have to be in control of. But on my mind will be eating. And so I get it. And so that makes it more difficult for me to tap into source because I've got this flesh telling me, eat something, Diva, eat something, Diva. So I can only imagine what he's going through when his flesh is telling him, sex something, brother. I get it. But when he's more tapped into source, then that's going to be somebody who you can align with better. Because I need to tell you something else about the Y chromosome. A lot of people don't recognize that the Y chromosome fights with the X. The Y chromosome is a genetically modified, unnatural, parasitic being. And its nature, these type of being, it doesn't matter whether it's a Y chromosome or not. I just told you, genetically modified, unnatural, parasitic. All of these beings, they have a type. They have some kind of characteristic or nature. And the Y chromosome has this nature where it will fight or try to control that which created it. It comes from the X. So its nature is going to be to fight with or try to control that which it came from. So we can go and, again, don't believe a word I say, go and look this up and understand that within the male, his Y chromosome stays fighting the X. So inside of him, he's fighting himself. So what you think he's going to do with you as nature, a female, a feminine entity? If he's not tapped into source, he's going to fight you. And this is why it matters about the woman. What is her mindset? Because he is just a reflection of his mother. That's it. He's an inside out woman. He is a reflection of his mother. So what's going on within her is always my issue. But when we're talking about a male and not having control of self, when he taps in, the more he taps into source, then he's going to have more control. But as a woman, you need to recognize he's a Y type and what his Y type is, and the fact that it doesn't lend to him control or full control of self. It doesn't, because it's an unstable chromosome. Again, it's not a diss to my brother. I'm just telling you what the facts are. Go look it up. This is why more than 85% of the population, or let me rephrase that, more than 85% of the derogatory things that happen in the population, they're done by males. Not to say 85% of males are doing this, but it's to say that this is a chromosome or a type where that if this being is not tapped into source, it's going to do some negative things in this society. All right. Man, as in mankind, humankind, not males specifically. No, sir, white boy. I'm talking about males, period. I don't care if you Albion or dark skin or chicken or rooster, turtle. It doesn't matter. Male, period. Males, period. Any species, it is in that Y chromosome to do specific things. There's a nature to it, and it doesn't matter which one. It could. I'm sorry. Go back to Mary J. That Mary J. male. See, because it's a plant, we look at it as is not a being that moves. No, it is a being that moves. It has moving parts. So when we say that this Y Mary J plant is a male, you got to kill it off. Why? Because it's going to cause the whole population to become hermaphrodites. The same thing is happening in this human society. It doesn't matter whether it's male or human or any other kind of being. If it's got the Y type, then you've got to be cognizant of what its nature is. And its nature, if you're not careful, it will destroy the entire population. The male type will. Doesn't matter what being it is. I need that to be made clear. Why justify awful antisocial behavior because it's in their nature? That seems like avoiding accountability. No, nobody's avoiding anything, white boy. Nobody's avoiding anything. Again, we're going to the root, because you know how people just put a Band-Aid on a sore or a Band-Aid on something and it keeps coming back because you haven't dealt with the root of the issue? Well, what's the root? The woman. She is the root. Everything that's come in here comes through her Stargate. Hers, not his. And if it came through here, it's because she said yes. My goal is to get her to say no. My goal is to get her to recognize who she's doing business with before she creates another monster. Because all of these monsters come from her mind. And then through her body, her Stargate. So if we're talking about stopping it, let me tell you something. I don't need to talk to him. I don't need to talk to none of these monsters. I don't need to talk to even the male. All I need to do is talk to the woman. Because the moment she comes into order, this entire society must come into order. I just need 10%. I don't need all billions of women. No. Just give me 10% of them. Because once 10% recognizes them, there's going to be a spiritual awakening for everybody. Whether you want to awaken or not, you will see 10%. So I need to get to her because she is the root, not him. That's why nobody's avoiding accountability. He's going to be accountable. And let me tell you something. This is why we go through the universal laws. What are my universal laws chart? Okay. This is why we go through the universal laws. All right. Universal laws deal with all energies that you put out must come back. I don't care if it's a male or female, a donkey or a dog or a roach. If you put out an energy, the energy shall return. So I don't even need to hold him accountable. I already know the universe got him. Anybody who does dirt, I already know that the universe is going to take you out in her own way. So I'm not even concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is the root and the woman and the fact that she's coming back into power. Okay? And once she comes back into power, she needs to know how to wield that power properly in a way that she didn't do originally. She needs to learn how to wield her powers properly in a way that she didn't do originally, which is why she's in a position that she is. So let me get into this, and thank you for that, white boy Poppy. Okay. Originally, this planet was a matriarchal planet. Originally, women procreated on their own. Don't believe a word I say. This is why when things like, you hear things like virgin birth in the Bible. Again, you think of it as mythology because, well, we can't prove it. But then you hear things like Lilith, and Lilith is having children on her own. And then you see beings that are closer to your original beings that have the ability to procreate on their own, like Mary J. Mary J can procreate on her own, and I'm not talking about the singer. You know I'm talking about Mary J. And the original beings on this planet procreated on their own. If you're talking about every cell in your vessel, there ain't no male female cell. The cell procreates on its own. When you're talking about the mitochondria, there's no male female mitochondria, because she kills any mitochondria coming from him, which is his mother's mitochondria. That goes away. She kills that. So then we know that the mitochondria is coming from the mother, but they know how to procreate. So either you're talking about fission, which is done with the mitochondria, you're talking about mitosis, which is done with your cells, or you're talking about parthenogenic, which is done by the Mary J plant and other natural beings, bacteria, and other original beings that are on the planet, which is few and far between. But that's how you procreate, okay? That's how the original beings procreated. So originally, all of everything was run by the feminine. And then a masculine entity appeared in this dimension or on this planet. Because originally, as it's told, this planet was a spiritual planet. And then you have beings here that are more on a masculine being that came in and started to take control. Now, even if we talk about the gods, because somebody mentioned the gods, I want you to know, even if we go back to this, Isis and Osiris, because a lot of people don't hear me when I'm talking about how women used to own everything. And everything, if a man wanted something, he had to come through the woman. All right. Isis and Osiris were so-called gods. And Isis was the one who owned everything. Osiris was her brother. He married her so that he can maintain the wealth. He didn't own nothing. You know, it was owned by her. This was the origin and where everything came from. All of the power, the wealth, the knowledge, the land, it was in the name of the woman. Till this day, go and read the Iroquois Confederacy. The land that we know of as the Americas, to this day, it's in the name of the women. If he wanted something, he had to come through her. A man, according to the Iroquois Confederacy, which is older than, of course, the Constitution and predates it and stands above it, is telling you that the woman owned everything. So what woman gave birth before man without the man? Find the Khalifa tribe. And once again, they're going to tell you Khalifa is mythological. Somebody told me that Queen Europa was mythological, because they just want to call it mythological, and then that way you can equate it with a lie. Okay, if you want to stop there, then you can stop there. But if you want to dig deeper and find the truth, do some research on who Khalifa was. Khalifa was head of a tribe, an all-women tribe in a territory known as California. As a matter of fact, that territory was named California after Khalifa, who was over this all-women tribe. Go and find the Amazon women, another all-women tribe. This is letting you know, again, when people are talking about a virgin birth, a birth without men, it was being done. And this is as late as the 1700s or the 1400s. All right, so go and do your research. Now, getting back to this planet was a matriarchal society. And what ended up happening is that women wanted a slave being. A slave being was created. Now, I need this to be made clear because I talked about the Anunnaki. There was already beings on the planet before they got to the planet. Okay? We're talking about these beings called the Anunnaki. There were already beings on the planet before they got to the planet. And once again, the planet was a feminine planet. However, there are situations where we can see that women wanted to create men. And when they came into being, women treated them like a second class being. Pay attention to what I'm about to say, because those of y'all who read and study, you're going to be able to follow me. Those of y'all who do not read and study, this is going to go over your head, but just listen to me and go and study, and then come back and let's have an intelligent conversation. All right. So when we're talking about what happened with respect to women creating men, or them, the male coming from the female, what you can see is, again, I told you about how this Y chromosome comes from the X and how there were all these genes removed. Okay. When we're talking about the Anunnaki and how they supposedly created humans, there were specific things that they didn't want when they were creating humans. So pay attention to what I'm saying, because these stories interlap. Okay. And you can see it when you're looking at the genes. One of the things the Anunnaki did not want, they didn't want beings, the beings that they were creating, or the humans, to have the same longevity of life. They didn't want them to have the same knowledge. They didn't want them to be too intelligent. They purposely degraded these humans because they wanted them to be second class or lower. They kept things away from them that they didn't want them to have so that they can stay a lower class. Okay? When you look at the male, let's understand there are things that have been kept from him on a molecular level that the woman still has. Okay, what are they? I just talked about longevity of life. When we're talking about longevity of life, the male, I don't care what society you go into, I don't care what type of being you could, again, land, water, and sky, and air, water, and land. All right. It doesn't matter what beings. If it's a male, its longevity of life is less than that of the female. All right. When we're talking about intelligence, I don't care which beings you talk about, land, air, or water, the feminine being has a higher intelligence than that of the male. That don't mean she uses it. Let's be clear about that. But she has a higher intelligence level than that of the male. And this is not to diss the brother. I'm just telling you what the truth is, because even in, I don't care what society you go into, that female brain is going to be larger than that of the male brain. Okay, so this is something that has been taken away from him. The same way it was done with the Anunnaki when they created the female. When you're talking about bone density, okay? And I know we'll say, oh, men's bones are stronger than women's bones, but the truth is, dense-wise, again, go and do your research. The woman's bones are denser than that of the male's bones. When we're talking about oxygen in her cells, she's going to carry more oxygen. I get it. He seems stronger, but I'm just telling you to go do the research. When we're talking about oxygen, she's going to carry more oxygen in her cells than he does. Again, I'm telling you, on a molecular level, there have been things that the male has not had or has had removed from him that the woman still has. Again, those 1,300 genes that were removed from him, she still got them. She still has hers. He doesn't have his. That's her power to tap in, but she's not tapped in. She's not using it because she's leaning on him. That's another story. So again, I'm letting you know that when you're comparing what's going on with the Anunnaki versus the humans, it mirrors the story of women versus the male on a molecular side. So I want you to do some research, and I'm going to talk about this book. It's called When God Was a Woman. All right, I'm going to talk about that book and what I read in it, but that's a very good book to go and read. I don't recommend a whole bunch of books, but that's one I would say because it goes into history and speaking about what women did to men in the past and how she treated him. And what you're going to find is the same thing the woman is going through now is the same thing she went through back in those days. Let me rephrase that. The same thing the woman is going through now is the same thing he went through, the male went through back in those days, in the beginning. So let's talk about a few of the things that you'll find. It was the woman who was mistreating him. First of all, the male was a slave. And I know, well, he was the original. No, no. Let me know. What you got to recognize is even a servant. And they repeat it. Put and my is going wrong. like I'm seeing my feed here on you. It's not the clean, but it looks